my first time on it, so I'm really hopeless. And I'm trying to find out how to invite people. Richard, are you there? My first time on it, so I'm really hopeless. I'm trying to find out how to invite people. Richard, are you there? Hopeless. I'm trying to find out how to invite people. Richard, are you there?
Hi,
Hi,
Gina.
Gina. Hi, Richard.
How you doing? The sounds a bit was really a bit weird before we when we were just listening to you. Then I'm hoping it's now going to clear up.
Yeah, I think it's because my Microsoft
It's still sounding super muffled at the moment. I can't really hear you very clearly. I don't know if you can hear me right now.
Yeah, I can hear you. Are you all right?
Oh yeah, that's great actually.
Yeah, okay. I'm just
Yeah.
resting you on my computer, so um, it might be
Maybe
because
it's
of that.
that. Maybe I was getting your fan actually. Maybe it's a
Oh,
fan. I could hear this noise.
yeah, it might be my fan.
It's gone now, so that's really lovely.
Okay. Oh, right. So, I think some people have joined us. That's really nice of you. Hi, everyone. Um, yeah, so should we introduce ourselves and say what we're talking about?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
Why don't you go first?
Okay, great. So hi, my name's June Lin. I'm a cultural organizer and artist, and I'm currently working with What Next, which is a movement that looks to debate and shape the future of the arts. I'm also working with Migrants in Culture, which is a network that is looking to support the agency and rights of migrants working in the culture sector. And I also have another project with the artist Brian LaBelle on sex with cancer, so exploring intimacy and illness.
Amazing, Junlin. So, my name's Richard Watts, and I'm a director at People Make It Work. And People Make It Work's an organisation of 60 freelancers who work together to support the cultural sector to change, develop, and transform. And so our focus is on helping organisations, communities and individuals to create the cultural teams and organisations that they want, that are, and we have quite a strong focus on social justice, representation and equity. I identify as a gay man from a working class background, and a lot of the work that we're doing is kind of seeking to create a cultural sector that's staffed by everyone, by a representative group of people, which means that the culture that's created can connect with and reflect everyone in our nation and communities.
Ace. So Richard and I are working as part of a coalition that are freelance networks and also organizations that really support independent practice. And we're a coalition that has been commissioned by the Arts Council to develop a program of learning and action to explore what does it mean and what does it look like if we were to work together to build equitable conditions and an equitable future for freelancers working across the arts and culture. So it's a real pleasure to be working with partners, including Ink Arts, What Next, Migrants in Culture, People Make It Work, Musician, Artists in Exchange, and Something to Aim For. I haven't missed anyone, have I,
I'm
Richard?
not sure if you mentioned freelancers make theatre work.
Oh, and Freelancers Make Theatre Work.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, it's really
so
amazing, isn't it? To be sorry to talk over you. It's really amazing to be working as a group of organisations and individuals who are like orientated, I think, to independent cultural workers in the sector. And when we started to think about what the freelance cultural workforce needs at this time, that kind of led to us thinking about what Freelance Future should be as a program of activity, didn't it? And I suppose in that we were thinking about well, the fact that probably we don't need another space where we re-express the challenges and rehearse what's difficult and unequal. And actually, we need to create a space together where we can get on with it and make some change, take some action. And I think we imagined that that means bringing together freelancers, organisations, funders, unions, a whole host of organisations and individuals to make some of this change happen together, didn't we? Do you want to say a bit about the goals that we're hoping to create, Julian?
yeah, um, I mean, I think it's good to also say like why we're involved,
Yeah,
um, and um, I think we all have very different reasons, but one experience that we have is working with freelancers or being freelancers ourselves.
yeah,
And I think going through the pandemic, as we know, exposed many, many inequalities that have and continue to exist in the foundations of the culture sector. And on the other side, um, it also made visible the level of organizing, research, and campaigning that was being led by really, really grassroots initiatives, independents, people trying to think um, in a really systemic way about what changes
yeah,
needed to happen. And this kind of organizing that surfaced during the pandemic as well as pre-pandemic was astounding. And I think when we got together, um, it felt really important that it wasn't just for independent practitioners to be finding a solution, nor organizations, nor policymakers, nor unions, but for all of us to be working together to be finding systemic solutions to systemic issues.
mm,
And on a really, really personal level, I think I've come into organizing this coalition because I really want to be able to know that I have a choice,
yeah,
like literally a choice to work in the arts, a choice to have a joyful and sustainable practice for life if I wanted to. And I know that isn't everyone's choice, but I think we should be able to come to culture and the making of culture and the production of culture with agency. Um, and it feels like such a simple thing to say, but it is about agency and choice. It is about a sustainable practice that is joyful for life. And I know so many more friends that are burnt out, exhausted, frustrated, and just extremely sad and fearful, who are leaving rather than staying in the arts. And
mm,
so that to me is my personal motivation. I want these amazing people around me to be creating the cultures that are going to allow us to imagine ways of living and being. And we need this talent that is across the spectrum, that is super diverse, has super different lived experiences. That's the intelligence we need. And we're at that risk of losing that to many, many other places. So that's my personal reason. Plus, I think it will maybe chime with yours and others, but I know everyone's got very particular reasons for getting involved in this.
Yeah, I love the way you talk about this, Junlin, and I love the way that you express the 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 essential the requirement, the essential requirement for a breadth of lived experience across the cultural sector, and this that we can see, can't we, that the way in which we live is affected by the stories that are told and who's telling them on our pages and stages and screens and on the walls of our galleries and our museums. Like they shape who we are, how we think, how communities function, how young people grow up, what young people grow up expecting, and there's inequity within the cultural sector that means that some of those voices are either intentionally or unintentionally it's much harder to be working in this sector. And for me, this conversation about freelance experience relates to that we saw during the pandemic, didn't we, that the infrastructure was protected, and individuals were less protected. And how do we create a system that enables all freelance cultural workers to have fair resources, have clear roles, have power and equity to shape the creative work that happens. Yeah, feel safe and well, feel support, have the same benefits and support that others have. And we know that the people that end up in freelance work, some are choosing it, and some it's the only choice that's available. That means we've got to be really careful about those conditions, and feels like that's why we need to do something, and that we know enough about what needs to be done to get on with it. Like, there's a phase when you might be going, let's examine this, and there's another phase where you might be going, let's bloody do something about this. And if we can and actually these problems aren't insoluble, they just require some attention, and they require some prioritization. And I think that's what we're imagining Freelance Futures is about, isn't it? Creating focus, creating a moment, encouraging people to come together to address soluble problems that are systemic, and that each of us has something we can do about.
That's a really great summary, Richard. Do you want to just explain to everyone who's joined us, like, what is Freelance Futures and like its phases?
Yeah, let's do that. So yeah, for this program, we decided that essentially what we're interested in doing is creating an opportunity for people to get together and create some change, either in the organisations that we work in or with, and to do that during this summer. We recognise that some people need to get up to speed with some of those reports and insights you've already described. And so we created these 3 phases to the programme. Essentially, what we're saying is that there's a phase that's live now that runs until the 10th of June, which we're calling kind of getting informed, resourced and connected. You can see all of this information on freelancefutures.org, of course. So that's about like reading reports, pulling your ecosystem into this program. So who do you want to hear this conversation with in order that change happens in your experience of the cultural sector. Invite those people to be part of it. Maybe they're other freelancers you work with, maybe they're organizations you often work for or with, maybe you are an organization and you feel like you need to bring your HR team, you might need to be bringing your union colleagues into these conversations with your funders. Like, who's needed in order to create changes right where you are? Invite those people in during this first sort of 3 weeks. We've then got a phase, a sort of more intense phase, perhaps a bit more like a typical symposium or conference that we're calling the online gathering, and that runs from the 13th to 17th of June. And that's kind of a more tightly programmed. There's 3 or 4 things each day. There might be a wellbeing session, a panel, a workshop, each day across a range of different topics. And then we've got a third phase, haven't we, that runs from the 20th of June to the 15th of July, which is really about, so what? Like, having had those conversations, having listened to those perspectives, having chosen some priorities that you really want to address, how can we make those happen in your place with your peers so that conditions are altered? So that's the final phase that we're calling kind of continuing the work, embedding the shifts. So yeah, that's kind of how we're thinking about it. I guess it's worth saying as well, probably, that we've cut it another way too. So we recognise that when you talk about freelance work, there's just so many of us doing different kinds of things and interested in different questions. So we've got 4 themes: organising together as a sector, understanding freelancer rights and resources, shifting and developing policy, and creating change in organisations. We've also got a regular focus on well-being. So whichever of those things you're interested in, you'll find stuff happening all the way across those 3 phases. That's probably enough about kind of the structure, isn't it, Junlin? Where should we go next in our conversation? Do you want to say a bit about the impacts that we're expecting?
Well, I mean, I think maybe I can talk about I mean, that's a great summary as well. And if people are interested, then please do go to the website, which is freelancefutures.org. And we're really encouraging people to find their own route through this. And I think, you know, what our expectations are for this is that we hope this is a space where everyone can think about and embed solutions together, because we're not going to do it in a silo or individually and alone. Nothing's going to work if just us freelancers do our thing, or if the policymakers do their thing, or the cultural organizations do their things, or the funders do their things. We need to all get together, and we're really aware that this isn't a talking shop, that we want this to be a learning and activating space. And that's precisely the reason why it's a 9-week program. So I know the Arts Council probably thought we were going to do a 1-week symposium. And we ended up with so many ideas, and with a really firm commitment of it not being just an event, but something that you could bed into your daily practice over a longer period of time, so you could build relationships, so that you could invest that time in doing that bit of research that you wanted to, so that you can meet people and then talk about, with some reflection, what actions you want to take together with others. So it's really, yeah, I guess all the partners in the coalition are really like encouraging people to think about it as one step on top of all the previous work you've done, and one step to further all the actions that you're going to do. And we're really aware that this is not the first and not the last event around freelancer rights. It's building on pre-existing work, on research, the labor of so many people that have campaigned before us. So we just hope that this is going to build momentum to really, again, ask what other joyful, sustainable ways we can be in the arts for life.
Mm.
And I think we have to keep asking that because it's a basic and fundamental right that we have that choice. Maybe I can talk about I know you were going to speak about it, Richard, but I can maybe start and then you can chip in as well about who this is for, because it kind of connects. The program is for everyone who works in culture. So whether you're at the start of your practice or very established in your practice as an independent practitioner, it's for you. It's for people working within cultural organizations and trying to intervene and change structures and conditions within cultures. It's for funders and policymakers who often get a bad rap because people think that they should know everything and should be able to fund everything. Like everything else, it's highly complicated, which needs collaborative decision making, collaborative input. So it's for people that are trying to think about how do we anchor good practice, how do we make sure resources are being distributed where they need to be distributed. And it's for unions as well who are looking at sector-wide and art form ways of organizing for better conditions. So really it is for everyone. And as Richard mentioned before, you can look at the program online. There's different themes in which you can go into the program, whether you want to look at rights and resources, transforming organizational cultures, organizing together as a sector, or influencing and making policy. But we also recognize as freelancers, we're doing a billion different jobs and wearing a billion different hats. I'm fundraising, funding, creating, organizing, and building alliances at the same time. So you can make that route through the program depending on what is right for you and what you feel like you need to learn and what you feel like that you can share information with others. So shape your program, and also, as Richard mentioned before, bring your ecosystem. And by this we mean the people who work with you, the people you work for, your stakeholders in this generation and the next generation, the people that are aligned with your mission and vision. Bring these people because it's more fun to come to a program and learn together with people that you can then embed the change with later after this 9-week program. And a special shout out that if you are an Arts Council funded organization, big or small, please do consider supporting your ecosystem to attend and engage in this program, especially freelancers who are not salaried or reimbursed to take part in many different sort of sector-wide conversations. So if you're an organization that is funded by Arts Council, think about those people that can support you make those changes. And we're suggesting a nominal fee of 250 for them to engage in some aspect of the symposium or the program.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like that's so important.
What are you looking forward to, Richard?
Well, do you know what? I'm really looking forward to concrete outcomes. Like that's what I feel like is so significant. Like I feel like we need to convert our sort of good intentions into actual shifts in organizations, in places, in the ways that we're working. And so I'm really excited about that opportunity that actually by people doing as you say and convening their ecosystems, bringing people that they're working and thinking with into this space, actually they can make some really concrete changes. They can create clearer roles that are more equitably paid. They can extend the the support and care that they might give employees to others who are working freelance in their organisation. They can pay them properly to contribute to the creative thinking that leads to that program. They can shift their HR policies so that they're treating colleagues with the same support as they treat their audience and their participants, like recognizing that this needs to be transformational experience to work in the arts as well as go and see the arts, right? And quite often it isn't. So I'm really excited about that. And for me, that's about using our little toolkit. We've got a little 6-step toolkit that's just about helping you to just jump through those hoops with the other people that can make it happen with you. And I'll be really excited to see that happen. In terms of content, I'm really, really looking forward to some of the work that freelancers make theatre work are doing, that's kind of rolling the programme out into organisations across the country. I think that's a really exciting idea that relates to, kind of who's part of the problem and who's part of the solution. And I'm really interested in questions around, around human rights and human resources, and how we might shift the way we think about HR within the cultural sector to make that a mission-driven and values-driven conversation, because I think that's so important. How about you? What are you really looking forward to?
Yeah, I think I'm looking forward to lots of ways we can activate support and care structures for ourselves. So I think there's a session on activating mentorship, and this was recognized as a huge need in a study done by Something to Aim For and Queen Mary University, when they were looking at performing leadership differently, that we actually need many more spaces in which we can support one another. So there's a session about activating mentorship, especially if you've come from a marginalized background, and how actually we need more of this experience to be supporting and anchoring this and the next generation. So I think that's going to be interesting. I'm really excited to be sharing a conversation about governance and how independent creative practitioners have been influencing governance on the level of organizational change to city policy making. I think the session about pay rates and unions and how we can really get down and dirty about pay rates is a fundamental one that we need to discuss, because we need those benchmarks and we need to also increase those pay rates. And I think actually the next one coming up, our next session is actually with the Arts Council. So with What Next and Arts Council next Wednesday. And we're going to be discussing what the Arts Council has been doing to support independent practice. And I think it's a really open space to start to be co-dreaming and co-designing what are those resources we need to build around independent practice. So there's a lot of stuff, and I'm very happy to see how much intelligence and knowledge is in this program. And I think everyone that comes to it is bringing their own experience and expertise as well. So it's going to be rich. It's going to be good. Yeah.
Yeah, now I'm looking forward to all of those things too, for sure. And I think there's I feel like there's a conversation. We've got some peer surgeries. We've got a whole host of stuff that's in that space. And the other thing I suppose to say is that we've also got this platform, haven't we? Community platform. So that's with Mighty Networks, and that's about enabling people to unpack what they've heard, ask questions, discuss debate, set up our own activity. So if there's stuff that's missing from the program, from your perspective, from other people's perspective, then we'd really welcome that to get kind of organised on that platform too. So that's the resources. If you go to the website and then click on community, you can access that space too. So we're not trying to contain it, we're trying to like enable it, and I'm really excited to see what else gets generated by people who are kind of coming along and getting involved.
Amazing. I think we've talked for about half an hour, so we should probably get kicked off this this feed.
Yeah.
But if you have any questions, any of you on the chat, we've got a contact, an email on our website. And if you've got any questions about access as well, let us know. We're trying to be as accessible as possible. Everything is captioned, will be live captioned, BSL interpreted, and available permanently on the website for free. So hopefully we're making it as accessible as possible for our colleagues.
Yeah, I think it's really worth mentioning that, Julian, that that we aren't imagining that people turn up on the days when things are programmed. We're imagining that people will access it on the website whenever it's good for them. So all the stuff that's created, all the panels and discussions will be on the website within a couple of days. And, you know, we're imagining most people will probably access those things that way in our own times, at our own pace, with other people that we want to explore those ideas with in order to create more equitable conditions for all of us. Thanks for this conversation. I've really enjoyed like airing what we're up to together.
Yeah, first IG live.
You know, exactly.
Amazing. Okay, well, I'm gonna finish the video,
Yeah,
and thanks everyone for being with us, and yeah, take care, and we'll see you there.
absolutely. See you at Freelance Futures. Cheers.